Okay, we're on card number 3 of the 4 from my live stream last night. This one features a nebula in the sky. All right, now you would never see a nebula that close, but it makes for kind of a more whimsical looking, kind of visual when you bring in kind of those deep space types of images with, you know, traditional perspective, kind of landscape. And what I'm going to do on this one is I'm going to add in some extra, kind of intensity into this nebula here with my alcohol pens. Okay, so I've laid down all my colors, my existing colors with dye-based inks. Okay, so the usage of the alcohol ink should not kind of put back into solution those water-based dyes, okay? So you can just go straight over it, and this is on the glossy cardstock, so I will be able to do a little bit of blending on here. Now, you get a different type of texture with the alcohol from the water-based dyes, okay? And it's very obvious when you do it, but we're going to unify all of these different textures. The dye-based inks can dry a little bit flatter, where you can see the alcohol ink. You can see where I've used it here, okay, right up to here. It's not just that it's a different color, it's an entirely different texture. The dye-based inks are a lot, it's certain brands of dye-based inks. They dry kind of flat looking, especially when layered, all right? And the alcohol inks are, of course, they're very shiny. They're very surface-oriented, so they dry on the surface. And the dye-based inks work by staining the surface, so they absorb in there a little bit more. Okay, so as I'm doing this, I'm kind of laying down a pretty big slathering of that first color because I want to do some mixing on here, some blending. So, I mean, this is not kind of the final look that I want with this color right here. So I've laid down a little bit of a slathering with the lighter version of, in this case, violet. Okay, so that's about right there. Now I'm going in with this. Now, I mean, this isn't going to blend like it does on, like a Yupo paper or something like that. This is cardstock and it is absorbent, but you can get some, a certain degree of blending kind of happening if you build up your inks enough on there. So you have to kind of build them up a little bit in order to be able to move them around. Easy. I mean, that goes the same for just about all inks. If you kind of build it up, you can kind of manipulate them a lot easier. Okay, let's see here. Now I have a blue right here. So we'll go into this and kind of move it around. And one of the things that I'm going to do on this nebula is I'm going to go in and add in a pigment ink to kind of make it glow a little bit more. Or a lot more. Okay, so we're getting a little bit more of an intensity there. That was the blue, kind of a light blue. Let's go in with a little bit of a darker blue here and blend that around. Okay, now I'm going to be a little bit more, kind of varied in my application of this. I want to go for a really deep intensity of color here. Now, I think I'm going to add in a little bit of warmth, okay? Now, I'm going to retain some of the white in there because I want to use some white pigment ink. But just to go for a little bit of a kind of a warmer tinge in here. It's not expanding kind of the temperature range greatly. It's just getting a little hint of some warmth in an otherwise kind of cool color scheme here, temperature scheme. All right, so we have that right there. And let's go into my blender pen just a touch, okay? And I'm going to kind of blend it out around here just a little bit. I got a little bit heavy-handed in there. So this will kind of remove, you know, some of that ink. You can see it on the blender pen, you know, because it's putting back into solution the ink that you've just laid down. So that it just does a little bit of blending. Or in this case, kind of removing. But it also blends in a little bit too. Okay, so I got a little bit dark there. But that's fine though, because you can kind of remove it to some degree. It's not removing like a large percentage, but it might remove off about, I don't know, maybe 10% of what you've laid down. Okay, so that's about right there. And I need like a magenta or something like that. Let me see if I have like a deep magenta. I don't usually use such bright colors in my scenes. With alcohol inks I'm talking about. So let me go see my other pen set. Okay, these are some really inexpensive shuttle art alcohol pens. Let's see how these are. They still look pretty good. So I'm going to go for a little bit more of a brighter intensity in here. I'm kind of just using this pen just to lay down some tone, and then I'll go back in and I'll kind of blend it in a little bit more, or a lot more, if I can. Let's see how this goes. I haven't really done this with my sky figures like this before, you know, with a huge amount of alcohol ink editions. But I don't know. I feel like playing around and experimenting here with this one. Okay, so I've added in kind of a brighter, more intense kind of magenta color. Let's go even a little bit more here. Like this. Ooh, that one's a really good one. Okay, so I've kind of just scribbled it on there a little bit, or a lot. And then we're going back in, and we're kind of treating this almost like watercolors, where you kind of lay something down, and then you're doing like a wash over it and having it kind of spread out. I like those kind of washy alcohol ink looks, you know, where they have that, I don't know, there's like this little like crust almost that builds up around kind of a swatch, especially when people are doing those kind of like bottles of alcohol inks and then laying them down, you know, more than the pens, you know, really. But you can kind of get that pen look here a little bit. I mean, that, you know, the bottle brushwork, you know, types of looks to some degree. All right, that's what I'm talking about right there. And let's kind of, I don't know what it is. It's almost like bleaching it out. It's kind of like moving it out from the inside out, and you do that with the lighter tones. It's kind of building up like a puddle, I guess, of ink. And then you're kind of like moving it around a little bit. Okay, getting there. I'm getting moving close. Oh, excuse me. I'm kind of getting moving more towards what I'm going after. I'm finding, okay, I'm kind of building up the colors a little bit more, and it's really getting me that kind of that texturing that I want. You know, it's like moving it out like that. I don't know. I guess I did need to add quite a bit more in here to do that. I didn't have quite the buildup of ink yet. Kind of those, you know, like Hubble telescope looking visuals are always kind of amazing to me. You know, when I've seen those. Or, I don't know, when we first saw some of those types of things. I don't know, it wasn't just Hubble. I don't know, some hobbyists can really get those nebula types of visuals too that I didn't know. Maybe with digital photography too. I don't know, the capabilities of I don't know, kind of image capture become much more available. All right, now this is really kind of standing out quite a bit. But again, the spray sealant will kind of unify. You can see that different texture from dye to alcohol. I don't know. I guess in this case, it's not just dye to alcohol, but it's the amount of alcohol to thicker alcohol. Okay, now let's go in these clouds and kind of blend out a little bit, or kind of manipulate a little bit. Right in here. As I do this, it kind of doesn't do anything. But then when I keep adding it like this, with additional alcohol ink, kind of putting back into solution some of that piled up, built up ink, it starts to dissolve it, and then I'm able to, you know, kind of manipulate it like that. Okay, I think that is about right. Let's see, let me bring some of this down here a little bit. All right, the shuttle art pens came in handy. I didn't have, I mostly use the pastel range of alcohol inks for my usage, okay? But that really worked out good. Okay, we're going to do some splatter painted applications of stars, kind of right in this area. We have a lot of cloud perimeter on here. And I'm not quite sure if I'm going to add a quote stamp in here. Kind of right up here would be kind of interesting, maybe. But we'll see how that goes. Okay, so I have my Dr. Martens bleed proof white here. I'm going to be a little bit careful. Inevitably, I'm going to be splattering some of this right over the top of my cacti in the scene. But I'll just black it back out, you know, with a pen or something like that. There's a couple different whatever approaches. You can do the splatter painting in here first, and then you can stamp your imagery over the top of it. But sometimes when you're stamping your imagery over the top of kind of raised little, you know, even though these little specks are, you know, they're not super raised, but they are raised to some extent. Sometimes you don't get it as clean of an impression of your imagery, you know, over that type of texture, even though it's, you know, slight texture. Okay, so in splatter painting, I'm just doing a little tip of that toothbrush, and then you see I'm kind of wiping out a lot of the paint in there. You didn't need very much paint at all for this little amount of space right here. I'll tilt this like this so I can splatter paint from the side like this too. And I'll go fairly close so that I'm doing a more targeted application of this, you know, these stars here. I want a little bit on my clouds, you know, just, I don't know. The clouds are really dark anyways. So it could be just, you know, it could be space in there. It doesn't have to be like, you know, clouds, you know, around the Earth. Although these lighter ones would represent that. There you have it like that. See that textural forms in there? I didn't go too extreme in here. Well, let me see. Maybe go a little bit more. like something like that. Okay, so from a textural standpoint, I just think it looks a little bit more dimensional now. And again, I'm being a little bit conservative here. I don't want to go too much because, again, I don't want to splatter everywhere. So you just kind of, when you're doing that, you release kind of a couple hairs of, the bristles at a time. For control. Okay, let's add in, oh, let's go with, let me just go straight to white right here. Maybe I'll add in a little bit of blue too. You gotta really shake up your pens every time you use them. Even if you used them like earlier in the same day, sometimes they start separating. The acrylic paint pens are made that way. The inks are a little bit thinner, and it's for your benefit, so that they don't, the pens don't clog on you. So it's a little bit thinner in viscosity, and you get a separation between the pigment and the binder in this case, which is water, for acrylic paints. Okay, so I'm doing a much, a very targeted application of my white here. I can, avoid my cacti in here. All right, so you see that? Some of my little stars are too evenly spaced here, so let's kind of cluster some of these. And you can see I'm changing my size of many of the stars too. Like that. And let's go with a couple light blue. Any kind of colors out of your color scheme would be fine. You can go with a kind of a more magenta one. Magenta is going to be a little bit, kind of darker, so maybe pink or something would show up a little bit more. Let's see, I need a little bit more around that kind of more central star down this way. Okay. Now let's add in our kind of textural additions here. I'm thinking about adding in glitters on my mind, but let's see. I do have these amethyst crystals. I don't use them too often. They're not as kind of as sparkly as my clear ones, but maybe I want something a little more subtle than that in this case. Let's try a couple of the really small ones, and we'll see if they kind of add a little sparkly element. Okay, they're like I said, they're kind of they're a little bit more on the darker side. But they should be a little bit reflective of, some light. Kind of be a little bit kind of varied in terms of your spacing of them for a more kind of natural look. As much as a crystal rhinestone can look. On a piece of glossy cardstock. We're not going for photorealism in the cards. I mean, you can kind of strive for it if you want to, but I tend to think of these cards as more of like a kind of whimsical type of approach to creating visuals. It's much more in the spirit of like animation or something like that. Okay, looking around, seeing if I got all my little dots of glue. Sometimes the dots of glue start to dry, and it's kind of hard to see if that dot of glue was. Yeah, I think it looks pretty good. What do you think? That purple, I think it looks really good. Let me add a couple more of those ones. I'll go about 3 more. I kind of like it because it sparkles, but it's also very subtle to completely invisible at certain angles, you know, when it's not really capturing the light. Okay, got to be careful with this pack right here because these lids are, they don't snap super strong. This one snaps really well, the clear crystals. Now I could put a clear crystal in there too, but yeah, I think that looks pretty good, just like that. Okay, so it's just a little twinkly kind of amethyst light, I guess, right in there. All right, now let's add in some little glowing textures into our piece. We'll go with our white pigment ink again. And let me get all this stuff away, put away. All right, now where I'm going to target this is around the glowing white light and on some, you know, a couple of my stars in here. Not the amethyst ones, but the white pigment ink. Oh, I need to switch up here. Let's see. Okay, so you get a ink on your tip. My pad right here is kind of drier on the dry side, so I'm going to blot off some of it too before I take it on here, because you don't want a big blob of ink applying on here. You just want it to just barely apply anything with each kind of tap. So, and I start off in the lighter area like this so that I'm tapping off some of that ink. I always think of it like, I want to say paint. I mean, it's not paint, but kind of pigment ink is almost like paint in a way. You can kind of soften this up a little bit too, you know, because I want to add a soft application of it. So like a thick, hard, you know, like ball of ink is not going to do that. Okay, I'm going to make some of these stars a little bit more kind of glowy. All right, so I'm kind of, that's a little bit too much there, so I'm going to remove some of it. And a really light touch, and then you kind of, you don't go in the same kind of, I keep kind of spreading it out a little bit, okay? Let's see, let's go in. I need a couple of like stronger white stars in here. The white one, little dots that I laid down here kind of, when they dry a little bit darker looking. Yeah, some of my white dots in here kind of, it looks like it absorbed a little bit of the alcohol ink. I don't know. Does that happen? I guess so. Okay, so I have some stronger dots, white in here. Now that white's a little bit wet here, so as I tap onto them, I might be kind of removing some of that ink. Oh yeah, let me see, it's this side. And now there's a lot of easier ways to do this with the nebula, which I've always done before. I just wanted to, like I said, I'm just kind of playing around with this one right now. I was just looking at some photographs of some nebulae, and I thought, let's go for some more of that kind of that softer, kind of glowing look and deeper color intensity. And let's see if we can achieve that. I usually don't do that amount of, like I said, additional work with, the alcohol inks, especially. Okay, so you get some of those little glowing little stars like that. Now, I always do this with glowing stars, though. I think that looks really fun from a textural standpoint. Kind of putting a little bit of a highlighting glow on some of these clouds down here that are a little bit, illuminated, by retaining some of that white or, the lighter, kind of layers of ink that have been laid down there. I mean, there's a little bit of the white of the paper still. That's one thing about these pieces like this. A lot of times people think that you started off with like some kind of colored paper to create these types of backgrounds. And they think that the white or the lighter areas were done by using like a bleaching technique or something like that. That was, the comments that I've had kind of the most over the years, or like if you have a kind of a light moon like this, they think you started off with a white piece of paper, but somehow with like a bleaching technique or something like that, you've achieved a light moon kind of in a darker field. Okay. Now, like I said, on some of those little dots there, with my white pen, they were still kind of wet. So I kind of smashed down that little central little white star in the middle. So I'm just adding that back in here now. Kind of a crisp little center to that little glowing star. Those little amethysts, I don't know, they did the trick. This is I guess maybe it's because my background's a lot darker this time. I mean, I'm thinking about this in like a quick scene type of scenario where we can start off with probably like a purple foil or something like that and stamp our nebula on there in black and then just add in the amethyst crystals on top of that paper. Now, we wouldn't have that light, like white area like that, but we can probably come up with something kind of in the spirit of this piece. And I think that would be pretty cool. Or, I don't know, something worth giving a try, giving a shot to. Okay, so one of the things I want to think about on this piece, I think we have a lot of great types of texturing going on in this, but I'm wondering about, some different kind of focal point imagery. I didn't leave too much space in there for anything, like down here. I don't know, it would be kind of interesting to have like a little person walking right there. Um, you know, I don't know. I don't know about the couple and little dog. That would be pretty interesting. Now I look at it. I didn't put my gold back on there. Protective plate or whatever. Okay, let's go for this. Let's add our little people down here. I don't know, it kind of makes for an evocative thing. When you add people into a scene, it kind of puts us as a, you know, viewer into the position of the people sometimes. I don't know if that was, you know, I guess if someone have, you know, if you guys have dogs or anything like that, it would, you know, be especially transportive, or used to go out and, you know, walking the dog or something like that with the, you know, with the significant other, especially, you know, something like that. But I don't know, something like this too, you know, be like a good, potentially good sympathy card. You know, someone loses a dog or something like that. Not to make this a sad, whatever, video here. Okay, I wasn't quite sure if I've added some alcohol ink down here, so I'm doing a dye-based ink over the top of what I think is just regular dye-based inks, but if I'm going over the top of alcohol ink, I might need to allow this ink to transfer a little bit longer. Yeah, it looks pretty good like that, I think. Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I think it looks pretty good. Now, let's add in a little bit of some highlighting down here. We'll have some of our little brush in here. Getting some of that lighting from above. I'm not making the lighting too kind of extreme, so I'm going in with the blue acrylic pen here. About like so. I don't know. Looks like a pretty, to me, looks like a pretty romantic walk under the stars on a perfect, I don't know, desert night. So they don't go for a walk during the daytime, because in the daytime it was 110, but at nighttime it's cool, you know, 80 degrees Fahrenheit or something like that type of look. Or not look, but scenario. I'm kind of adding these little extra little glowing little dots down here. You know, it makes for a kind of a little magical thing. Like, you know, it's like, you know, like these little dots out here, you know, probably don't make a lot of sense, you know, but from a visual standpoint, it makes it a little bit more dynamic. Okay, so I'm going to wait for this to dry a little bit. I guess I don't need to wait too long. The only thing that was kind of wet were those people, but I'll spray fix this and or spray seal it, you know, any type of acrylic spray. I'm using the spray fix just because it's really fast and I can get my matting mounting done. I'm not sure which one. I was thinking about this with the a little bit of a white and then wood around it. Maybe not. Maybe black, you know, dark glossy border on this one would be good. We'll check it out and see what we come up with. Okay, we've got our card formatted, spray sealed. After spray sealing, sometimes you lose a little bit of that white pigment ink application, because it's so thin and it like light pastels or something like that, sometimes when you spray so you use your kind of white highlights on it, and that's what happens on the pigment ink to some degree, so you can go back in and touch it up a little bit with an additional layer. Thus. And you don't need to spray seal it again. I mean, you're not going to be giving a card to someone that's going to be like rubbing their hand over it or something like that and removing it. I don't think. I'm adding this little kind of glowing little perimeter on some of these little dots a little bit more because I really like the look of it. I think it looks like a little magical or something like that. Okay, that's a little bit too extreme. I added a little bit too much on some of these, but remember, it dries darker than what it looks like when it's been freshly applied, so I'll let that set up for a little bit and we'll see how it goes. Okay, so anyways, let's see those little crystal... here, that's a little bit too much on some of that. I'm removing just a little of that paint, ink right there. And let's, here, I need to establish a little bit more of that lighter core. Maybe that's the thing that's missing here too. Yeah, there we go. That looks better. I needed that little crisp little white dot in the center of these little glowing things. Otherwise, I don't know, it just looked like a little glowing, soft like ball there, but now it looks more like a glowing star. It's more defined as such with that little dot in the center of these. Little orbs. Little orbs are kind of add that little magical kind of element to a scene. Whimsical. Okay, let's see what we have. Okay. Our little stars like that, and our little twinkly little amethyst stars in there. See those kind of stars kind of twinkle like that back at us? Very subtle, but I really like that. I mean, it would look cool up here, I think, with some glitter too, you know, if we wanted to do that. But I think those amethyst ones are doing the trick here for me on this one. All right, card number 3. We just have our moonlit one right here to go. And I'll figure out something to do with this one. I'm not quite sure. I wanted to add something down in here, I think, as a little visual focal point. And some of the white brilliance ink around here to make it kind of glow, but I haven't figured out what I want to matte this with. I know something like this, just simple, glossy, kind of dark. It's like a black lacquer frame type of thing around the perimeter might be good, but we'll figure that one out. Okay, so thanks for checking out this video. Hope you like this piece. I'll walk underneath, it's like the violet, I don't know, walk-in, the lavender, no, I don't know, whatever, blues, and I'm trying to think of a title. I'll figure something out.